GoodKnit Kisses. Again, I'm your host, Kristen. Thank you for your patience. If you're joining me live, I'm going to continue setting this thing up so you can see this very tall yarn. Pardon me. I got to make sure you can see these stitches. Okay, welcome everyone. Today I am going to show you how to table knit. So this is the beginnings of my knit piece here. And stray hair. So we're working with Bernat extra thick yarn. So this is Bernat blanket extra thick. Don't mistake it for the one that's just, I think it's just thick. Yeah, this is extra thick. But anyway, this one right here, also the label looks like this. It is 100% polyester. It is a chenille type yarn. It's a jumbo number 7, which basically is the largest categorized yarn at this point. It's got needle sizes on here of 25 millimeter or a hook size of 25 millimeter, which is US 50 needle or US U 50 for a hook. But we are going to use our hands today. So all you need, honestly, is your yarn and your fingers and maybe a pair of scissors. I don't think you need any right now because you're not really cutting the project off. You will need 3 to 4 balls of yarn to make a large chunky blanket. The pattern that I have is in the description. I don't think I can pop the link in while we're live, but you'll be able to see it later. I'm just going to show you real quick. So I originally saw this on a live stream with Yarn Inspirations and found the pattern. So I'm going to show y'all my interpretation. Now, I'm going to tell you that you may need more balls of yarn doing it the way I'm doing it, but I don't like seeing holes in it. And it says to do 2 inches, like these 2-inch loops, but I really like what I've gotten here so far. And I have not measured, but it's I think you're probably going to need 4 balls instead of the 3 balls that's prescribed. Now on this pattern, what I've done, I'm just going to show you a bit what this looks like. This is how much I've gotten out of 1 ball. Okay, so put my arm on here. I've got really long arms. It goes up to my elbow. It's pretty long. And then the width of it is longer than that, twice that. Okay, so it's pretty wide. But I did 30 stitches wide. The pattern actually calls for 32. I wasn't paying attention, but the basic point is I want to show you what this looks like, and then I'm going to show you how to make the stitches. So the basic pattern is actually making this garter stitch along the sides, so here and here, and then I just added doing 1 row of a purl row across the bottom. The actual pattern doesn't call for that. But right now, first I'm going to show you how to actually make a stitch. And then I'm going to begin from the beginning with this ball of yarn and show you how to start it. Because if you see starting from the beginning, it looks a little fiddly and you're like, is it worth my time? Because the beginning chain to start is a little wonky. So that's just me being honest with you and telling you the basics. So if anyone is got any questions, I'm going to have a hard time reading because it's like way up in my tripod. It's really hard for me to read. But anyway, write your questions. Hopefully I'll see them on the replay and I'll get them answered here anyway. So let me go back a few stitches and show you. Now you work right to left and left to right using the front of the stitches only. And if you are a loom knitter, this will make sense to you because loom knitting is always showing everything from the right side. Okay, so we're looking at the front of your project. Okay, and if you're used to needle knitting or crocheting, you work a row down and then you have to turn your work over and then you have to work from the back. So on the right side, it's going to develop the stitches how you may be used to, but when you work from the wrong side, you're actually continuing working with everything facing up, and then you have to work the stitch in the opposite direction. And anyway, I'm gonna show you how to do that. All right, I hope that has helped. So I'm gonna work from right to left and then left to right. So whether you are right or left-handed, it doesn't matter in this case. You know, you may see me use my right hand only, but like the direction is my dominant, but I'm honestly using both hands. Okay, So here we go. Let's see if you can see this. I'm going to try not to zoom in and out. I'm just going to pull it up to the camera. So if you can see, I have a live stitch here, and all these stitches here are literally live stitches. So if you were to put this project down and somebody came along and messed with it, yes, they would have a problem. Like right here, I'm going to let this fall out. So see, this stitch right here is falling out, but if I just pull it back through, it's good to go. So if you had to leave this project for a long period of time, you could put a long piece of yarn through all of them, okay, across, and tie it off. So I just want to show you that these are live, but they stay pretty well together. And the only reason why some of these came undone is because I put it in a bag and dragged it from my upstairs to my downstairs and then into my studio, and I just lost one in the process. So there you go. Okay, here we go. This is how we're going to do it. Let me get this out of the way. Hopefully you guys can see it fairly well. I know it's white on white. When I start this over, by the way, when I start it again, I'm going to show you on the dark yarn with this white background. And I'll build it from the base. Okay, so here's a loop. And then we're going to take our yarn, and the working yarn comes from technically the back of the loop. Okay, so the yarn is back here, and then we're going to pull it through the next loop from the back. So we push it through from the back and pull up a loop. You're supposed to pull up a 2-inch loop according to the pattern. Now, this is more of like a 1.5-inch loop, maybe. A 2 is more like this, I think. I didn't get out a measuring tape, and I basically just did the thing to see how I liked it. Now, this is what it looks like, right? There's a few inconsistent spots, but most of it is a really consistent blanket, and I can see through it at times, but I just can't see myself doing a 2-inch loop, okay? So it is going to be less fiddly. I'm just trying to show you all the things about this. All right, here we go. So I'm going to go through, and we're going to go poke through a loop and go to the back and poke through a loop. I am making sure that I'm not leaving a huge amount of slack between my loops, so what we call ladder yarn. So here's a loop and here's a loop, but this little part right here is that working yarn from the back, and I'm trying not to make a big amount of space between those, and I just pull up my loop and close that gap. So next one, we're going to pull up a loop, and I'm on my last 2 stitches, and you can see this little bump here. That is a purl bump appearing because when I go from left to right, I actually make a purl bump on this pattern. I'm going to go to the next one and pull up a loop, and this is a knit, and you can see it makes that V shape here. I don't know if you can tell, but it's making a V shape. Pull up another loop and another V shape. Great. Now we're ready to work in the opposite direction. If you wanted to do another knit stitch, you're going to pull up a loop and go from the back and pull up like that, okay? And do that. But see how that would make this part smooth and not have a bump every other part on the side here. So we're going to pull these 2 out. I'm going to show you how to make a purl. All you do is go from the front or right side, you put the yarn in front, and we're going to push the loop through to the back. So from front to back, pull up a loop. Okay, do it again, front to back, and pull up a loop. And you're done. That's the purl stitch. And then we keep going with the knit stitch, and then you just throw your yarn to the back again between these 2 stitches. And then we pull up a loop. Ta-da! And we go to the next one, and we pull up a loop like that. And then we keep going. Now, I'm not going to keep going because I need to work in another ball of yarn. And basically what you could do in this case is you could tie them really tight together. You could try, and I would go back and make sure you have a long length here to maybe tie them in a knot and cut them. Or the best thing to do so you don't have hard knots is to let this be a long strand and then start another strand and start pulling in the new loop here and leave these links for later. And then you just weave these tails in later. That would be probably the best one so you don't have hard knots. And I would make sure these are actually fairly long so that none of these come looping out. What would be the worst thing when you're cuddling on the couch and have an old stitch raveling through. That's why you may want to do the knot situation. Just be careful. Chenille yarn has a thread through the middle that can break easy, but these are actually fairly hard to pull on. These seem stronger than a regular chenille, probably because they're jumbo. So anyway, that is how to make the main stitch, and look how cozy, cuddly this is. I mean, so nice. So one of these big, massive blankets. So basically for $100 US, you could get a nice chunky blanket that you made yourself, because right now the retail on these, I went to Joann's in Hurst, Texas, yesterday and bought, or 2 days ago, and bought this extra thick blanket yarn, and they were $19.99 a piece. And I actually got a coupon for 20% off my entire purchase. So that's what I got. Well, and I had another coupon that I had used because I had a teacher coupon. So I got one for like 25% off. So coupons are great if you've got them. If not, no worries. So, all right, let's begin with the beginning of this blanket. And put the other one away. Hopefully I've helped answer y'all's questions. Whoop. That you may have had. Look how giant this thing is. Look how ridiculously large this wrapper is. I'm sorry. I just think it's hilarious. By the way, there is a pattern in here. I just, for copyright reasons, I don't want to show this written, but there is a link to the pattern, which I'm assuming is the same pattern. No, it's actually a different one. Okay, so this one's called the Big Ridge Crochet Throw. And so there's a crochet version. And so I'm guessing it's this. Yeah. Okay. So this pattern is on the inside of this particular label. Okay. All right. It's a big ball of yarn. You're getting to see me pull this out live. Ooh, that worked out so much better. Okay. So we're going to pull out several yards. If you have one of those giant bowls, like a giant, mixing bowl from an industrial thing, I bet that would be so much nice. An industrial, like restaurant supply store. It'd probably great to be put that in there. So I'm going to set this over here somewhere. Okay, let me go back to the beginning. Begin at the very beginning. A very good place to start. Sorry, I pulled into my Julie Andrews phase here. Okay. Okay. Oh, someone said something. Let's see if I can read some of this. I've seen someone who took a lighter and burned the end of the yarn and put new and old together, have done it and it works. You've washed them and this stays together. Oh my gosh. Lori, thank you for that tip. It looks heavy but lightweight at the same time. Yes, it's lightweight. It's super bulky. Oh, by the way, my Alice bag, that really big Alice bag that I had, I crammed all 4 in there. 3 of them fit across, and then I kind of crammed the 4th one in. So you could kind of carry that along, and that bag would be big enough to stuff this project in. So look for the Alice bag. Oh, let me get some water before I start. Hang on. Okay, you're going to start with a slip knot, however you like to do it. They do this like pretzel thing. I'm going to do the classic Kristen, where I just wrap it around my finger twice. Got it? Take the back loop over the front slightly and do it again. New back loop over the front, over the tip of finger, and pull down. Okay. So now we have a loop. Okay. I'm going to make my loop big enough to see here. All right. So it's a 2-inch loop. This one, I did a 2-inch when I first started that other one, and I had a hard time finding it. So I'm making my beginning one just a little bit bigger here when I start. Okay, so I'm sorry, I am right-handed. I'm going to put the tail on this side and my right hand through here, and we're just going to pull through and chain. So I'm pinching and pulling the working yarn through the loop, and that's 1. Okay. And then we're going to do 2 and then pull through another 3. And we're just being loose. We're not pulling really tight on it. And 4. Okay, we'll pull through another one, 5, and pull through another 6, and pull through another 7, and pull through another 8, and pull through another 9, and another, we'll just do an even 10. Okay, so we have 10 on here, and then we're going to start pulling. We're going to leave this loop here on the end. That's going to be 1. And now we're going to pull from the back, and we're going to go to the next loop. So here's this first loop that this is coming through. We're going to go to the next loop here on top, and we're going to pull a yarn through, a loop through. Okay, and that's your second one. And then we're going to go to the next loop that's along here and pull through a loop here. So we're pulling through and making a loop through every chain here. So I've got 2, 3, and pull through 4, and then go through here 5, and go through the next one. Let's see, 6. And I'm just feeling the next part with my other hand. 7, and the next 8, and the next 9, and the next 10. Okay, so now we have 10 loops, right? Our very first one's a little bit big, but there we go. So now we're going to work this direction. So this is where I purled. So I'm going to come through and I'm put my yarn to the front, and I'll push through, and I'm going to purl. Go to the next one, push through, and purl. Go to the next one, push through, and purl. If you're doing the other pattern, you don't purl on that first row. I think you actually just start knitting the rest of the row, and then you purl the last 2. But I like purling across the first row on this one. But if you were going to knit that first row, let's just leave those 2. So do it just how they do it in the pattern. We're going to pull through and do a knit, and pull through and knit, pull through from the back to knit, pull through from the back, knit, pull through from the back, knit, and now we have 2. Nope, we've got 2 here. So there's the third one, and that's knit. And now we're going to go to the front, and we're going to purl, push through, purl, and go to the last one, push through and purl. All right, and then it can come to the back here, and we're going to pull through, and we're going to the other direction. Pull through, push through from the back, and push through from the back. Okay, so here's a little problem solving here. So like I've gone and done this, and this starting to look good. The end looks wonky. Like this part right here was where I had my original first loop. So you might not want to make that loop so big. So you would have to go back and adjust and make that smaller. Okay, so the only way really to do that is I just undo it. But I didn't do that when I originally started, because when I originally started, I actually didn't pull it through as big, but I kind of wanted to test. So you can actually, before you undo everything here, you could, and this is one thing I did problem solve with. I didn't like the consistency the first time I did the white blanket, and I didn't think all of these were consistent. So I went back to the end, and I was like, oh, well, how do I do that? So I basically started pulling on this last loop here, or second to last loop, and make this one smaller. And then I went to the next one, and then I pulled this one to make it consistent, right? Pull this one, make it consistent, and you get the idea. You just keep going and making it consistent. And then once you kind of have that gauge, you're setting the gauge that you want. You're setting the consistency of your blanket right now. And this foundation row, I'm not even sure if they call it foundation row. I'm doing this from memory. But that first row is set. And now when you start making your stitches on this next row, they're going to be much more consistent. So when you continue going like I did, your blanket will end up, if you're just now joining us live, I'm going to show you what it looks like. Hold on, let me get the big sample. Okay, here's my big sample right here. You get this really pretty, it's pretty well consistent too, and you can tell it's hand done because there are points that have like maybe like this little part pops up more, and this one I was a little bit more consistent. I was watching television, right? But I think it looks really good. So let's look at this other color on top of it. Look how fun this one is. I like the variation of the colors that pop up. So if you want to know what colors I used, I don't remember if this is like ivory or whatever, but you can tell it's like a white color. And then this one here is the Renat Blanket Extra Thick Yarn in color, drum roll please, Dove, or depending on your language, Pigeon, or oh, Paloma means pigeon? I've heard that name before. Haha. Or dove. Anyway, it's a dove. So anyway, thank you for joining me at GoodKnit Kisses. I hope you've enjoyed this table knitting episode, which is basically finger knitting, but it's on a whole other scale with all the live stitches, just as you would have if you were knitting with like huge needles and you pulled the needles out and you weren't actually working with a tool. So have fun with it, and be sure and put your project away with maybe some yarn through it. If you have kids or pets or something and you want to make sure that these loops don't get pulled out, make sure and help yourself there. But I did this in one sitting watching a movie the other night, this one piece, and then you would need to add in 2 to 3 more balls to make a nice large 50 by 60 blanket. All right, thanks for joining me today at GoodKnit Kisses. I hope you've enjoyed, and we will not have a tutorial tomorrow. You can come back and do this, or you can join us next week, and we have another pattern coming out for loom knitting. And for those of y'all who are sitting there going, what are we making? What are we making? Here's a little teaser. Oh, here's a little teaser. We are working with this loom here. This is the Biddy loom, Biddy Flexi loom from KB Looms. Cool, right? Look at that. Look at that. It looks so good. Okay, I'm not telling you what it is. I think you know what it is, but this is actually going to be an actual useful thing from kitchen to table or to someone else's home. So there's your teaser. All right, take care. Love you all. Bye, everyone, and happy knitting.